Welcome back to Meet the Authors. Our guest this time is Len Blackwell. Len Blackwell, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Len Blackwell has been a local writer here, local lawyer on the coast here. 52 years he's lived here and from the area, before that from Perkinson. In fact, he wrote this book, The Perk Paperboy, which came out in 2010. He tells this as a result of Katrina and his wonderful stories. And I think what was really interesting for me, as we're just discussing, was your motivation, that you'd gone to the cemetery and you had seen the gravestones of all these people who used to be on your paper route, and you felt these people had stories to tell, and you would go ahead and tell them. Tell me more about that.
Well, I had the sense, I mean, my brother, who is no longer with us, we lost him in 2013, but we had a wonderful, our lives are just made up of a series of moments, you know.
Yeah, lives are like that.
Honestly, and we were coming back from Pearl River County, where we had some land over there, and we were replanting trees. He was a forester and telling me how to do that. And he said, let's stop by the cemetery in Perkinson. And we don't normally go there because we have a family cemetery here in Harrison County, over there. But he said, let's go do that. And so we went and saw the old cemetery there. It's over 100 years old, probably 150 years old. And there, among all those marble and granite tombstones, I could see the names, and I could see that they had just two little lines about them, usually their dates of birth and death, and maybe a statement about them, but nothing really about their stories. And I realized, as I looked around, it was kind of like Edgar Lee Masters, you know, the Spoon River anthology. I mean, you look around and you see, and there's all those people, and they were the customers on my paper route. Because I was a little young fellow delivering a paper, the Daily Herald, back in the 1950s.
Is that what became the Sun Herald?
It is the forerunner of the Sun Herald. And I delivered, believe it or not, I delivered the paper. Very sad that just the other day, February 5th, was the day that the Buddy Holly died, and you know, in that great
airplane crash.
In the airplane crash, in that anthem that about American Pie, they talk about every paper I deliver, you know, the winter cold made me shiver with every paper I deliver. And I remember the sad day of that. So my paper route was important to me because it connected me with the village, and it connected me with the people. And this was the time when rock and roll was getting started.
Yeah, the Big Bopper, Frankie Valli.
Oh yeah, all these things were happening, and here I am, a young teenager on my Western Flyer bicycle, and I'm delivering these papers, and I get to know the people in the town, and I get to know the folks up at the courthouse, because my father was a county official, and he was a county superintendent of education. So I saw Boyce Holloman, and I saw a lot of wonderful. Joel Blass, who was one of my heroes, and I saw Bob Newton, and these wonderful lawyers, and they inspired me. So
are these the people in your book now?
And they're in the book, yeah. So after the storm, I don't know if you probably did this too, but we always wanted something normal.
After Hurricane Katrina.
After Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. And so I had to get a lot of stuff out of my system. And I found myself writing a series of articles for the little paper in Stone County, and about being a paper boy and just telling stories, because that's what my life was made up of as a kid. And I remember hearing so many stories, and it kind of got something out. It got something different from the trauma of the hurricane, and it brought back this kind of comfort of the memories that I was able to get out and talk about. And I was telling you before that I read an article, I think it's in the New York Times, that talks about the importance of story to a family. How important it is that a family understand kind of what their mission statement is, what their story is. And it is made up of a lot of different stories about the people in the family. And a lot of kids, if they know those stories, if they know what their family is about, so to speak, it enables them to get, they actually used a test on kids after 9/11. And those who had a very strong concept of what their family story was weathered that terrible trauma and that event more readily than those who were sort of detached and didn't know what their stories were.
It seems like you could tell 100 stories. There's so many, everybody has a story, so many adventures that came out of Katrina.
Well, yes. I mean, it was, and this book is not at all about that, but it kind of grew out of it because it helped me in some way to tell these little innocent stories after that terrible trauma.
And as you're talking about knowing the family story, you told me earlier there are stories about your grandparents in here and your parents and where you all came from, McHenry County and such like that. That's a wonderful thing. And I saw pictures. There's pictures of you being a paperboy and a Boy Scout and some of these older gentlemen and from the history of the area. It's really, you know, it's really a lovely memoir book.
It made me realize that there are lots of institutions around which our lives kind of revolve. And in our little village, it was school, it was the church, it was the junior college, there was a community college, the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Perkinson campus there. It was the lodge hall for my father. You know, it was all these kind of institutions, and my paper route was kind of one of those because you had to inherit the job, you know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it wasn't easy to get at you.
Could you read some of it?
Sure. This will kind of give you the flavor. It's talking about summertime. Summertime in Perkinson was when we were allowed to go barefoot and roam the woods around Red Creek. Our house was next door to the Berry family, and Jack Berry was the one nearest in age to me. Having been schooled in gun safety by our fathers, we never shot anybody's eye out with our Daisy BB guns. But I know now in my heart that our mothers always must have said a special prayer about it, and that's what protected us. We also made pop guns that were tubes of hollowed out wood. Using a plunger, also of wood, we could shoot a China berry pretty accurately. We also used winter huckleberry and some other good wood to make bows and arrows. Because we always had dogs and sometimes cats, we were not bothered too much by snakes, but occasionally we'd see one. Usually it was a black snake or a garter snake or just some common green snake. But on one occasion I remember my mom killing a real live coral snake. The rule on those poisonous pests is red on yellow will kill a fella. One day Jack Berry and my brother David and I were patrolling the homestead with our bows and arrows when we came upon a ground rattler, as the pygmy rattlesnake is popularly called. Since we were equidistant from each of our respective houses, a small dilemma arose. If we went back to get the classic southern weapon of choice against the snake, the garden hoe, the snake might escape. Since every one of us was barefoot, sticking together and not separating our forces also seemed to be a prudent idea. We were three freckled-faced, barefoot boys pondering our situation to the tune of the snake's alarming rattle. In the end, Jack stepped up to save the day. He drew back his bow with a homemade wooden arrow, which we had sharpened and notched with a pocket knife from a winter huckleberry stick. He shot that snake clean through the middle, pinning him to the ground without any hope of escape. Wriggle and rattle as he might, that snake was a goner. I think Jack and David watched the snake while I fetched adult help with the garden hoe for the final coup.
What a lovely memory. That tells people the way life was in those days.
It was.
Yeah.
My generation really kind of bridged the gap of those who hunted to get something to eat as opposed to those who hunted for sport.
Yeah. So you've written this book, and tell us about the publishing process.
I was very lucky. My daughter is a vice president at HarperCollins. She is a publisher of W Publishing, which is a division of HarperCollins. That's her whole division. She referred me to one of their affiliates called Westbow Press. And I'm not like your last guest, Randy Pierce, who is a wonderful writer, by the way. his is more commercial along the John Grisham line. My book was done as a memoir, as I say, just to kind of help get me through the hurricane. It was not done as a commercial venture, but sort of as something to leave to my grandchildren and to my friends and family and people that I care about. And so I self-published it.
Okay.
And I would recommend getting a company like Westbow, because they handled all the details. They took care of the copyright. They did the artwork, which I think they did a good job. They worked with me on the manuscript, and you know, it worked out really good.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to do things. I do self-publishing on my books, and as you say, you're never going to make a fortune at it. But the point, if you want to be a writer, if you want to have something you're leaving behind as a memoir, this is the way to go. So, how many books have you sold?
About 1,000.
1,000 copies.
Yeah,
That's a big sale for a self-published book.
It's not bad.
Not at all. It's a very readable book. Brings a lot of nice memories. Where can people get a copy?
It can
Talk to the
be.
camera there.
You can order it at.
And hold up the book.
Yeah, you can order the Perk Paperboy at Barnes and Noble, or it's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It's available as an e-book as well. And if you want to know about South Mississippi in the 1950s and what a little freckle-faced paperboy did, that's it.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Thanks for coming, Len.
Thank you, Doctor.
Great to see you again.
Yes, sir.
It's just such a nice lesson. So those of you who have memories you want to leave to your children, this is a good example. All of our guest books, as well as my books, are available at my website, www.doctorsdreams.com, with a hyphen, doctors-dreams.com. So thank you for inviting us into your room, your living room today, and we hope that you'll have us tuned in next time when we have more guests and talk about riders in Mississippi. See you then.
I'm Dr. Brian Sack.
I has been with him about 8 years.
And Dr. Sain is a good person.
He's a good people person.
Well, we treat the patient with chronic pain.
What the medicine the doctor give me, everything is going good.
Well, here at Pain Stop, our patients are number one.
The pain that I was having, he have it under control and have it as to where I can function every day on a daily basis.
We use different diagnostic and therapeutic injections to help our patients.
Lo que yo le quiero decir especialmente a los puertorriqueños,
And I've had a good experience with the clinic. All the people are very educated and very helpful.
Epidural injections, sympathetic block, facet block injections, and various kind of nerve blocks.
And since I've been referred to him as pain management, he has really helped me.
It's a team effort.
We do our best to manage their pain according to their pathology, and I think we do a really good job. Dr. Sing's a very good doctor.
And I think he's a really good doctor.
que vengan aquí porque esto es un buen doctor.
He's a good doctor, and I'm happy to be associated.
Call 228-273-4096.